what you do is you find a toad and you lick its back. Make sure it's its back. You don't want to French kiss a toad or lick its belly or anything like that. It's the back of the toad you want, the back of the toad. Or what you can do is you can get some toad dust. Yeah, toad dust. I don't know how you get that. I don't know whether you squeeze the toad and the dust ensues. I don't know whether you take a grater to the toad. That wouldn't be very nice, would it? But you can get toad dust and you can smoke it, apparently. This all sounds a bit odd, doesn't it? And apparently it's got fantastic medicinal powers. It's a psychotropic, isn't it? Isn't it? Is it like peyote or something like that? I think it is, isn't it? Is it psychedelic? Is it a psychotropic? Anyway, whatever it is, Jake Paul seems to like it because he's had to backtrack this week. As Frazier famously said, you should make a beeping noise when you reverse that fast. Because he said on a podcast, it said that he said on a podcast that the great qualities of this toad dust. I can't believe I'm saying the words toad dust. I know that I'd say that when I woke up this morning. But maybe alligator sputum. That was a word a phrase I thought I might use, but I haven't used it yet. Oh, I just did. The great thing about this toad dust, he said, is that it has fantastic qualities. I'm paraphrasing, but he mentioned that it had helped Mike Tyson to get back into the fray for their appalling fight. Remember, famously, he had to cancel the first fight. That wasn't because of the thing that Jake Paul mentioned, because the allegation here is that Jake Paul mentioned that the toad dust, or something similar, has helped Mike Tyson's Parkinson's disease. Now, very quickly, Mike Tyson and his team have said Mike doesn't have Parkinson's disease. He doesn't have any illnesses. Well, he has a condition, doesn't he? I mean, he doesn't have Parkinson's. Let's make that clear. That's what they've said. And, that's exactly what the team have said. But he does have a condition, and that would be an ulcer. And I think Mike Tyson said that he really was in a bad way when taken off the plane, which meant that the first fight date, had to be cancelled. Now, you would have thought that the Texas Commission, who granted the license to Mike Tyson, and I've said before, how did they grant him a license when he had an ulcer? You would have thought that if he had Parkinson's disease, then the commission would have picked that up. But they either didn't know he had an ulcer or thought he has an ulcer but give him a license. I mean, either way, he has an ulcer, but he doesn't have Parkinson's disease, his team have said. And that has led Jake Paul to have to row back on this. Like an Olympic rower, in fact, like Steve Bloody Redgrave. UK joke there, folks. Well, not even a joke, really, but it is a UK reference. And this is very important for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that Jake Paul somebody has said to him, as you can't say that. So, with all the kind of hoopla that goes on with this influencer thing and all the boxing stuff, the influencer boxing, with all that sort of stuff, someone's finally said, hang on, you can't say that. And why would Mike Tyson's team and Mike Tyson himself allow that to be said about him? So the second, part of this first thing, 1B perhaps, is that Jake Paul has said, this is the, I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but he sort of said this is the problem with the internet. that, things get blown out of proportion. I presume that's what he means. People take things that, well, it's not under any doubt that I don't think that you said it. I've seen a quote. And also, it's a bit rich blaming the internet when all your money comes from the internet or something associated with it. You're an influencer, for God's sake. The internet is pretty central to that, isn't it? And the other thing is that Jake Paul has lost control of his boxing brand. Because a year ago, or maybe a little more, people were interested in who he was fighting. He could pick who he was fighting. People would be lining up to say, please fight me. And since the Mike Tyson debacle, I'm going to call it that, the Mike Tyson debacle, starring Stacey Keach, for instance, since that, he hasn't really been able to control things. And people have been saying, well, as I've said on another podcast recently, not mine, it's a Bees of Boxing, as I've said on that recently, now people are suggesting, why don't you fight that person? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? And really, the only two fights for him now are either, well, you could have the misnomer of someone like Mickey Rourke, which was mentioned a few weeks ago on that very podcast, who's got a link to boxing, and wrestling. So you could have him, but really, the two main opponents for him now are his brother, which is closer than we think, or Mayweather, Money Mayweather. And he will take that fight and say, this is mine, not yours. So whatever happens, Jake Paul, because even if he fights Logan will want equal shares in that as far as promoting and it being his fight and the way it feels. So Jake Paul doesn't control his own fights anymore. How did he get into that position? Well, part of it is the Mike Tyson situation. And part of it is the internet running away with things. He is right. The internet does run away with things. But you're part of it, mate. And you make these pronouncements, you say these things. As he said, I misspoke, and that's fair enough. Fair enough. But the internet will run with it. Did you not think it might? Ta-ta.